Before we go any further, I just want to clarify that the trends that catch my attention are things that I'm seeing through my marketing lens. Marketing and advertising is my background. So that is where my focus tends to lie. And so I do hope that I'm going to help you walk away with a couple of very useful things that you can implement immediately, some ideas for your consideration. And mostly, I do hope that at the end of this, you will be feeling safe, resourceful, competent, and knowledgeable when it comes to relooking the blueprint for your business, and in particular, how you take it forward and get more and more clients. I feel as though year in and year out, I am saying the same thing. Let's start with the fact that we are living in an increasingly ever-changing world. This is a positive thing for coaches because coaching helps people to deal with change, with adapting, possibly even reinvention. So I do think that as a profession, it's got an enormous inherent advantage. If I look forward at what they are predicting for the next 10 years, the World Economic Forum is forecasting 17% more stormy incidents in the nature of global catastrophes, 48% more turbulent times, with increases in things like extreme weather, societal or political polarization. I think we are already seeing that in a big way. Involuntary migration is another one of the trends that they are predicting, cost of living going up, and cyber attacks. And most interestingly for me, one of the recent developments, the World Economic Forum in their 10-year forecast says that the rise in misinformation and disinformation is going to be something that we're going to have to be dealing with. Just the other day, it was announced that Meta, which owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Trends, have done away with their fact checkers because fact checkers are human beings and human beings hold inherent bias. So we are really at the mercy of the information that we come across, and it becomes more important for us to look at the assumptions that we are holding. Again, coaching has a particularly unique spot in helping people to process the information that they're being exposed to, process the beliefs that this might be creating for them, or the assumptions that they might start holding because of misinformation and disinformation. I'm still very encouraged about the future of coaching. Noah Harari, who wrote 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, wrote an article on his predictions for the year 2050. And he mentions what he calls the 4 C's, which are critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. This is a reflection of critical life skills that the World Economic Forum has predicted are going to become more and more important to focus on. So we're really seeing technology becoming more and more integrated into our everyday lives. And we are probably using artificial intelligence and the likes more than we even realize. The 2024 ICF Coaching Snapshots speaks about coaching and supporting mental well-being for our clients. So I feel like these are all themes that are very nicely interlinked, and that they're all supporting the fact that the human remains at the center of delivering the coaching as well as receiving the coaching. And it's always going to be that way. In the 2024 ICF report, there seems to be a greater penetration of coaching throughout the African continent. In previous years, we would see little pockets in certain countries, but now it's a very, very noticeable trend. If I'm going global with my coaching business, Europe, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, the United States, these are all hypersaturated markets already with coaches who are living in these regions, let alone South African-based coaches wanting to penetrate these regions. I think we've got so much work to do on our own continent, and there is clearly a demand, a growing demand for coaching. I think Africa is going to, in the future, become quite an important place and space for the coaching profession, and we should keep our focus closer to home. Reinvention is a very big buzzword at the moment. And harking back to the high levels of uncertainty and volatility that we are living through, I feel that we need to have at least 5 plans. So our plan A, an alternative plan or our plan B, a backup plan or plan C, contingency plan or plan D, and finally, plan E, the emergency plan. We've learned very well from massive events like COVID that we do need to be able to adapt and shift literally within the space of weeks to whatever might be happening. Something else, or somewhere else, I think we've been at as a profession for quite a long time, is that our market, our clients and ideal clients are now quite knowledgeable and educated about coaching and what to look for when selecting a coach. And in fact, those of you who are working with people in corporate environments, so the decision makers would be people development, talent management, HR, L&D. A lot of these people have undergone some kind of coach training themselves and may very well be using coaching in the course of doing business. When I was studying at Stellenbosch, one of my fellow students was very senior in a multinational organization, and this was her first time formally studying coaching. She was responsible within the organization for formulating the coaching policy that governed who and how they hired as coaches, what the standards were, and what was the minimum acceptable barrier to entry. And after having done the postgraduate qualification, one of the things she said was that she was certainly going to be going back and relooking that entire policy because she had so much more information and insights about what the organization needed to be looking for, and the policy as it stood was no longer relevant in the current world, and certainly in terms of what coaching is able to offer. So just bear that in mind. Our clients are increasingly more and more educated about coaching and probably have at least 1 or 2 coaching qualifications under their belts. I was quite interested when I did a Google Trends research for the whole of last year on the term coaching, to see that the highest number of searches online for coaching, there were 2 definite peaks in terms of when people were searching online. The first one was January, and the second one was July and August. So at the very least, if you are marketing averse, What you do need to put into your business plan is some kind of a marketing push in the months leading up to those periods so that you are front of mind. An example that we would see in the normal retail industry is, when do we see all the adverts for holidays, for flights, for perfume, and so on? It's just before the Christmas period. So similarly, as coaches, if you don't have the capacity to be marketing yourself throughout the year, do concentrate on those two periods when we know that people are, in all probability, most likely to be searching actively for coaches. Never forget that consistency is rewarded. If you are highly visible, you're increasing the chance of getting the business. In the past, coaches' education was one of the big differentiators. So coaching qualifications like PhDs and master's degrees were a differentiator. More and more coaches now have these advanced postgraduate degrees in coaching. We're also seeing a decreasing trend in people wanting to, or having the capacity to sign up for long courses, long programs. On a frightening note, Dion Chang, who is one of South Africa's trend forecasters, shared that more than 800,000 South Africans who are receiving the 350 Rand social grant have degrees. So having tertiary education is no guarantee of getting the work, getting in with the clients. And I think tertiary educations are going to start facing more and more competition in terms of the time it takes and the money that it costs to get these advanced degrees, and your library of skills and experience counting very highly in your favor. Getting another coaching qualification may not guarantee you getting more business, but it increases your professional network, not just amongst coaches, but as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the people that we are targeting as our potential clients, they're also on these courses. They do give us a wonderful opportunity to build relationships, to be able to showcase our experience and expertise, and to expand our networks. And networking is probably the single biggest thing that I would recommend that you focus on when it comes to marketing. So what are you participating in, even if it's not directly coaching relates? What are you participating in, and where can you participate, where you can expand your network, where word of mouth referrals can be a result of you getting to know people? We can never get away from the fact that as much as 80% of our work is estimated to come from word of mouth referrals, followed a long way down the line by people searching on LinkedIn or otherwise searching the internet for coaches. So your network, the people that you know, is highly important. Something that I want to highlight as a business risk is around the fact that if we look realistically at our current networks, we might actually be aging out of the potential pool of clients. Now, what do I mean by this? So I'm in my mid-50s. My network is also looking at 10 years left to retirement. I'm starting to age out of the people that I would possibly be able to rely on for word of mouth referrals. So we do to continually build more relationships and refresh our network with the generations that are now involved in the workplace. One of the nice things about coaching is that there's no mandatory retirement age. So we can continue coaching for as long as we've got the inclination and capacity. But make sure that as part of your business blueprint and strategy, you're constantly feeding and refreshing that network of people that you could be getting work from directly or who could be putting you forward for work. If you know me well, you know that niches are my favorite topic. In a gentler language, let's talk about it as specialities. And I want to continue to encourage you to identify, develop, and showcase your speciality, because this is where we build subject matter expertise and we achieve authority status. And why is this important? Well, if you are marketing online, if you are using something like LinkedIn or articles that you are publishing, whether it's on your website or elsewhere, the algorithms are programmed to look for original content. I am intrigued by AI. I have used AI, but I would never, ever put anything that I'm putting out publicly through AI. Not an article, not even getting something like ChatGPT to generate a whole lot of social media posts from an article, because the algorithms have been trained to spot content that is being touched by artificial intelligence. And I am going to touch a little bit on how we can use these tools to augment the productivity in our business. But as a marketing coach, please try and avoid using artificial intelligence. And if you have someone doing the marketing for you, make sure that they are not using artificial intelligence. So when it comes to marketing yourself, what you want to do is pick a lane and stick to it. Again, I know that most coaches are marketing averse, very uncomfortable when it comes to talking about marketing and selling themselves, but try and find one way that you can be comfortable. It could be public speaking. It could be a very concerted and strategic networking drive. Or on the other end of the continuum, it could be in the online space. I always advise my clients to not feel pressure to be everywhere. Pick one lane, stick to it. Your goal is always to focus on building your status as an authoritative expert and specialist in a particular area. So have one go-to area that you stand for. I also think that one of the places or spaces where we can differentiate ourselves nowadays is in client experience. This is around looking at what is your customer journey with you from before they even get to know you to perhaps having that first chemistry session or 15 minutes chat about whether or not you would work together well, right down to after you've stopped working together as coach and clients. And just examine all the individual touch points. It could be even as small as how you go about the contracting process, how you deliver your contracts, how you even are invoicing. That could make or break the relationship, and that could be the factor that differentiates between somebody recommending you, giving you word of mouth referrals, or not. Another trend that I wanted to just quickly brush through was increasingly evolving coaching formats. And I've heard terms recently like micro coaching, referred to as the McDonald's of coaching, the bullet coaching. The ICF for, I think it's the MCC accreditation, has a requirement for the coach to deliver speed coaching. And I also saw a term called coach sultant, which is a blurring of the lines between coaching and consulting. And then the final format of coaching that we need to add into the mix is AI or chatbot coaching, which is becoming more and more sophisticated, and we are seeing in far more places. I still think it's got a long way to go. A concept that I'm particularly intrigued by is one that is termed creating a digital twin of yourself. So let me give you the easiest example if you're not familiar with this. If you're an auditor and you are auditing a firm's books, there are certain things that you would commonly find if the books are not being run in an entirely above the board way. And it is now possible to use artificial intelligence to create a digital twin that could do an initial overview audit for you and highlight any areas that might fall into these gray areas. Similarly, as coaches, how many of us are using things like Read AI or other tools to record our notes from our coaching conversations? And we can use artificial intelligence to take those notes and to extract common themes that are coming up in our coaching engagements and relationships. So artificial intelligence is not our enemy by any means. The attitude we need to have towards it is, how can I use this to make my life easier and to take some of the joy-stealing jobs off my hands? In fact, I came across some research by Jonathan Passmore, which says that generative AI can be used in a variety of ways in coaching, the coach matching process or pre-qualifying clients before you actually sit in front of them, helping coaches recommend future learning for clients or books or articles that they might want to read on something that has come up in the coaching conversation, acting as a co-coach in between coaching sessions, using artificial intelligence or generative AI to keep the relationship warm with the client when you're not actually sitting in front of them, sending them reminders and prompts, maybe even journaling prompts if journaling is one of the tools that you recommend. And also helping clients in the wrap-up sessions or when you're wrapping up your coaching, helping them with the reflection on how the coaching relationship has unfolded and what their learnings have been and how they can take this forward and implement it.